Hi everybody, welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. I came across this article today, written by Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz, who I've talked to, I'm friends with Israel 365 News. IDF preparing for the final battle, the biblical Heartland. And he talks about something that's going on in Israel among the Palestinians that could become part of what's going on right now with Iran, namely a ground assault, similar to what happened on October 7th. And this isn't really being reported on. So we're going to save this for a little bit later. I want to get you caught up in case you haven't really been following all the details of what's been going on this last about 24 hours in Iran, because I feel like there's a lot of potential that this could bring us to the end, frankly. I know that's not a really popular opinion. A lot of people think that there's so much more that has to happen and, this can't possibly be it. I feel like the signs have been just blatantly obvious, and we've talked about that in recent videos. So let me explain why I feel like this could lead to the end, okay? When I was a teenager, I loved this game right here, Risk. I would play it with my 2 or 3 friends. It's a game of world conquest, and it's really fun unless you're losing. And I'm ashamed to admit that there may have been a couple times where I was losing so bad, and I'm not the only one, by the way. Whether it was me or somebody else, we'd be losing so bad that we would end up just flipping the board because of the frustration of the other two ganging up on you and being unfair, or just losing in such a humiliating way. Okay. Now, Iran right now is in a really bad position. And I'm wondering, is the Ayatollah, is he going to flip the board and just do an all-out assault on Israel? Because his days, or even hours, may be numbered. I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay, so here's a brief rundown. This is from Jennifer Griffin. Israel officials say Iran has fired 370 ballistic missiles at Israel. When this conflict started, I was told by well-placed sources that Iran has between 1,000 to 750 ballistic missiles capable of hitting Israel. That would suggest that Iran has expended nearly half or a third of its ballistic missile stockpile. Okay, yeah, they don't have just unlimited ballistic missiles. Every time they do one of these attacks, that fraction gets bigger and bigger. And I haven't seen anything to say that they're being resupplied. I don't know if they produce these missiles themselves. But essentially, from what I've seen, there has been damage. They've hit some targets, mostly civilian targets. But how effective has it been? We've seen some of these attacks that have been really dramatic looking, but how effective has it actually been? I'm not aware that they've really hit any military targets. I think they may have hit a power plant, but it doesn't seem to be working as far as deterring Israel from carrying out its mission of essentially eliminating Iran's capability to produce nuclear weapons. It's been pretty pathetic up until this point. And that's not to dismiss, those that have been affected by these missiles. But when you compare what's happening to Iran compared to what's happening to Israel, there's a huge imbalance from my perspective. And that seems to be the consensus with all the news reporting that I've seen. So they're running out of missiles. Let's continue. This is Caitlin Dornbos. She added on to what Jennifer Griffin reported. Plus, Israel's wiped out a third of Iran's missile launchers, making it even harder for Tehran to deploy what missiles it has left. Yeah, so even if they had more missiles, like let's say that they had 2,000 remaining, 3,000, well, you have to have a delivery system. You have to have launchers to actually send them over to Israel. Okay, let's move on. This is Evergreen Intel. Quote, and this is a quote from Sky News Arabia or Arabic. Iranian media, Iran is preparing for the largest and most violent missile attack in history on Israeli territory. I was expecting to see that yesterday. Not a whole lot happened. There were a few attacks, but they were small compared to previous days. And so I have to wonder, are they planning this right now for today or the days ahead? Could they be preparing to flip the board? You have to remember, these are people that value martyrdom, and they're losing their capabilities. Things are coming to an end. I feel like Iran should know that this is basically it for them. And so if you're in that position and you don't mind being a martyr, what do you have to lose? If you're about to lose all your capabilities, and even the Ayatollah himself could be taken out, what do you have to lose? You might just go ahead and throw everything that you've got at them in one last attempt to accomplish your mission and potentially try and destroy Israel or destroy its government or just hurt them as much as you possibly can. Okay, this is from Sprinter Observer. The IRGC, that's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and the C stands for Corps. In the most recent video I did about this, I was wondering what the C was. It's Corps. Issue an urgent warning to the residents of Tel Aviv. We advise you to leave this city immediately for your safety and security and never return. Okay, so far, it doesn't seem like this message was really needed. There's this one too. This is from Ariel Oseran I think he's with I-24 News. The IRGC attempts to pull an Avike Adre issuing, quote, an evacuation warning, quote unquote, an evacuation warning for residents of the Tel Aviv suburb of Bnei Brak. In the statement, the IRGC says it will target military infrastructure of the Zionist regime in what it considered the Haredi capital of Israel. The Haredim, they are essentially what are sometimes called ultra-Orthodox Jews. So you have Orthodox, but then they take it to another level. And so that's who they're talking about here. So I don't know. I guess we'll see if they make good on this threat, or if it's just bluster, or even if they have the capability to carry that out at this point. This one's from Emmanuel Mani Fabian. The IDF issues an unprecedented evacuation warning for a large section of Iran's capital, Tehran, ahead of Israeli strikes. Quote, dear citizens, for your safety, we ask you to immediately leave the mentioned area in District 3 of Tehran, says the IDF's Arabic language spokesman, Colonel, this is who that was referenced in the last post, Colonel Avike Adre, in a Persian message. In the coming hours, the Israeli army will operate in this area as it has in recent days throughout Tehran to strike the Iranian regime's military infrastructure, the warning adds. So I don't know if this is over yet. I'm about to show you in a minute. I don't know if it's the next one or not. Yeah, it is. You have this TV headquarters building that was struck. There it is right there, which Israel said is part of its Iran's, propaganda arm. And there's dramatic video of a live broadcast where the person was going on. It was a female and she was, doing her news. And then suddenly there's just this explosion that took place and she had to run for cover. So I don't know if this is over. I kind of doubt that it is because of what I'm about to show you next. This is from President Trump on Truth Social. This is his account on Truth Social. Iran should have signed the deal I told them to sign. What a shame and waste of human life. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. Okay, so this is really big. This is the president of the United States saying that the capital city of Iran, everyone should evacuate. And this is a city of about 10 million people. And what he's saying here, is it related to this? What Israel warned about District 3 of Iran? I don't know. I think that this is probably still in effect. Further, you had this from Representative Nancy Mace. She says, I hope the Iranian people will listen to President Trump's warning, evacuate Tehran. And there are a number of posts that I've seen, like this one from Chowdhury Parvez. Over 10 million people in Tehran at 3 a.m. are being ordered to leave their houses immediately by a post on social media. So I think some people are taking this seriously. We'll have to see what happens today. Okay. This is one that was reposted by Jennifer Griffin. I don't know who Radio Free Europe / Radio Liberty is, but she reposted it, so I do consider this genuine, credible. This is President Trump. I'm not looking for a ceasefire. We're looking at something better than a ceasefire, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One, adding that his goal is, quote unquote, an end, a real end, not a ceasefire. So the question is, what does that look like? Do they stop once they've destroyed all of Iran's ability to produce nuclear weapons, and then that's it? Or is the end when they kill the supreme leader? I don't know what the end is. Is it a combination of those things, or other things that I didn't list? But it seems like things are actually coming to a head. The majority of my life, you guys, and I was born in the 80s. The majority of my life is you always had this issue between Israel and Iran in the background. For decades. For decades, it felt like something that would just go on forever. That there would never actually be any sort of solution except for possibly the final war of Gog and Magog in the battles of Armageddon and the siege of Jerusalem. It just seemed like this was going to continue being the status quo for forever. I can't believe that we're actually seeing it come to an end. I think that's what you can take from this. This is going to come to an end. And when it comes to Gog and Magog, there's a lot of speculation about who Gog is. Gog is an individual. Magog is the country and the alliance of countries that form to attack Israel. And a lot of people will, look at biblical scholars and look at the different areas that have been associated with places mentioned in the Bible. And most people will be like, oh yeah, this is the Russians and the Chinese, and it's also this country and that country. And, and that could be. We'll just have to wait and see what actually happens. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's simply Iran and its proxies. Because that's how Iran has been operating. You have what Israel calls the head of the snake, Iran, and then you have its proxies throughout the Middle East. You have the Houthis in Yemen. You have Hamas in Gaza. You have Hezbollah in Lebanon. And then you have the militias that operate in Syria and Iraq. So it's a coalition, and they've been pretty intent on attacking Israel. And that began in earnest back in 2023 when this war started. And I'm just wondering if this could actually be it. If this is Gog and Magog. And we're about to read from Israel 365 how they may attempt a type of ground operation similar to October 7th pretty soon. Israel seems worried about that. And most of it would probably take place in the north. That's where Armageddon is supposed to happen, is in the north of Israel. And then you have Jerusalem itself, which is essentially surrounded by the West Bank. So we'll get to that in just a minute. Let me just get through these other posts. Okay. Jennifer Griffin confirmed the U.S. Air Force is moving, quote unquote, a large number of refueling tanker aircraft to Europe in order to be closer to the Middle East. a U.S. official confirms to Liz Fridden. This will provide more options to President Trump and CENTCOM Commander General Eric Kurilla, the U.S. official said. So this was something that people had noticed. You have all these different YouTube and X accounts that watch air traffic. There's different websites where you can see what's up in the sky. And people were noticing that you had all these refueling tankers that were suddenly headed toward, Europe and or the Middle East. There's speculation as to whether this was normal or not. But we now have confirmation that, yeah, this is intended potentially for use in what's going on in what I think you could probably call this war between Israel and Iran. And this was especially interesting to me because before moving here to Independence, Missouri, we lived near Wichita, about an hour south of Wichita. And you have McConnell Air Force Base in Wichita, which is primarily composed of these types of aircraft. KC-135 tankers. I don't know if they have. I'm sure they probably do have KC-46 tankers, but that's what you see flying all the time in the skies over Wichita, when they're doing their training missions. So a bunch of these headed that way. There's been speculation whether the United States will play an active role in this. Okay, and then you have this post from the Ayatollah Khamenei. I've heard different pronunciations of his name. I'm just going to go with Khamenei. He says, and he posted, "Victory to Allah and near victory." So I don't know if he's just delusional because it doesn't seem like they're having much victory right now. Or, does he have this last play up his sleeve? You have to think about it like this. He's essentially a type of dictator. And I feel like a lot of those people are probably, psychopathic and or narcissistic. And so the way that they live their lives is they're looking for glory. They're looking for fame. They want to, make their mark on history. And like I was talking about earlier, what if he wants to be a martyr? What if he wants to perform this like final mission? And so he thinks that that's what's going to happen. And you know what I mean? Okay, he says, "The Islamic Republic, by God's permission, will overcome the Zionist regime." And then he posted this picture. I don't know, Khamenei. We'll see. We'll see. This is what Israel's been doing right here. You have all these top generals and scientists that have been taken out. And then more recently, this is by a post by Jason Brodsky. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told ABC News on Monday that targeting Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei would end, not escalate, the ongoing fight between Israel and Iran that erupted late last week. So that is an option that's on the table for Netanyahu, is taking him out. So I feel like that kind of ups the ante, and it could possibly push him to do something drastic. If you know that you don't have much time left, and you guys have to think about this. We saw something that I never thought that we would see. This was last year. Israel took out the head of Hamas, and by the way, and he was in Tehran, so they attacked him while he was in Tehran. Iran wasn't able to do anything to protect him. They took out the top of the head of Hamas, and then they also took out Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah. Israel's serious, and there is a really dramatic change taking place right now to the status quo. That's been the status quo for decades. We're seeing things with this that hasn't happened before. So I would take him seriously. Something really big, something really dramatic is taking place right now. This is history in the making. This is not just the same old stuff. I feel like people that are not familiar with the Middle East, not that I'm like an expert, but there's some people that are just oblivious to this. They don't care. They're just like, "Oh yeah, it's always like that in the Middle East." No, it's not. Not what's happening right now. No. This is not the same old, same old. So right now what's being talked about as far as taking out Iran's nuclear capabilities is one of the key targets would be this Fordo nuclear facility, but it's very, very deep underground, and they would need bunker buster, whatever, missiles, bombs that could take it out that only the United States has. So it would seem that the U.S. would have to get involved by providing Israel, or maybe doing it themselves, the U.S. bombing this, in order to take this out. So we're waiting to see what happens with that. But President Trump says that he's looking for a change. Like, he's not looking for just a ceasefire. He's looking for a permanent solution to this whole thing. So while all this is going on with Iran, they're losing their ability to fight. They don't have really an air force. They have an old, antiquated air force. I think I heard one general, retired general from the U.S. say that essentially their air force is from the 70s. They don't have an air force. I don't foresee that they'd be able to get troops over to invade Israel. There's been no talk or indication of that. They're losing their ability to fire these ballistic missiles. And now they're losing their nuclear capabilities that they were working toward. They're basically being left toothless. They don't have very much time. And that brings us to this article, Israel 365 News. IDF preparing for the final battle for the biblical Heartland. Okay, that's probably more what we'd be interested in from a prophetic point of view, because we know that there's supposed to be the Battle of Armageddon in the north, which is part of the overall war of Gog and Magog, and then there's supposed to be a siege on Jerusalem. And I think a lot of people picture this like World War III scenario where there's conventional troops that are, invading Israel and marching toward Jerusalem. I'm not so sure. Look at this. Maybe it's this. Even while the Israeli Air Force is flying nonstop sorties over Iran, the IDF is preparing for the final front in the ongoing war for Israel's existence. By the way, if you didn't know, I've mentioned this on the channel a few times, but this has been a 7-front war. The 7 fronts being Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, meaning the militias in Syria that are backed by Iran, Iraq, the militias there, and then the Houthis in Yemen, and then you have the West Bank, which would be another front, and that's the one that we're mostly going to be talking about here. And then the 7th front is Iran. They published this in the news. The defense minister talked about this a while ago, that Israel is facing a 7-front war. So I feel like something special is going on here. Continuing, this comes after solid proof that Palestinians are planning an October 7th style attack emanating from the Arab strongholds of Samaria, otherwise known as the West Bank, targeting all of Israel. And if I'm not mistaken, all of Israel would include Jerusalem and the north of Israel. Lost among the headlines about ballistic missile strikes were relatively tame reports that the IDF was bolstering its presence and preparedness in Samaria. Astute news hounds noted that reassigning military assets to internal areas was unusual. Yeah, because Israel is still fighting Hamas in Gaza, and I believe there's still action between Israel and Hezbollah in the north, but within the country. Now, ever since the war started, there has been some skirmishes within the West Bank, but nothing compared to these other arenas. It's been one of the more mild fronts of the war, but maybe not for long. The ground war against Hamas in Gaza is still being fought. The northern borders still require vigilance with a new regime in Syria, and Hezbollah's status is unclear. In the north, the IDF says it is mobilizing troops to be ready to defend or attack if needed. In the north, it's the north of the country. where Armageddon would be fought. But the IDF is uneasy about the Palestinians in Samaria. On Friday morning, at the same time F-35s carried out preemptive strikes against Iran, ground troops surrounded all Palestinian cities in Samaria, or the West Bank. This is news to me. I didn't know that. Reinforcing all border fence areas between the Palestinian and Jewish portions of Judea and Samaria. Soldiers have shifted to conducting inspections and monitoring traffic routes and village exits. The IDF accelerated the formation of the newly established Gilad Division, the 96th Division, which will be responsible for securing the eastern border and preventing infiltration attempts from Jordan. So I don't know, are there groups in Jordan that would potentially pose a threat? This comes after the Israeli Air Force's inadequate response to the invasion back on October 7th. This reflects a concern of many Israelis. A poll published by the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs and conducted by the Lazar Research Institute reported that 81% of the Jewish Israeli respondents have concerns about a large scale, I have to be careful with the wording here, a large scale attack emanating from Judea and Samaria. Well, and this isn't new. The prospect of something like this happening again, I haven't necessarily heard about the West Bank, but I have covered on the channel before that Hezbollah was planning to do something like what Hamas did in 2023. And they may still be planning that. So what if, as the end draws near, what if Khamenei decides, okay, this is what Iran is going to do. We're going to flip the board. We're going to fire everything that we got. And we're going to order, Hezbollah in the north to do one of these type of attacks. I don't think that Hamas would be able to do anything. And then encourage Palestinians in the West Bank to join in. In a very, very short period of time, things could go crazy and literally biblical. Okay, continuing. This fear seems justified. In September, Israeli authorities filed an indictment against a member of a squad based in Jenin who planned to infiltrate Jewish civilian communities in Samaria and carry out an October 7th style attack. So they have drawn up plans. You have Hezbollah that did, and now you have this group in the West Bank that also had plans. In February, Defense Minister Israel Katz revealed the security forces recently discovered Hamas files proving the group had plans to carry out a large-scale assault on communities in Judea and Samaria and along the seam line security barrier. Quote, Hamas files have been seized that had a purpose of attacking towns in Judea and Samaria and along the seam line. Katz said in remarks to heads of regional councils, Israel Hayom reported. The communities in Judea and Samaria are the protective wall of most of the state of Israel. When Judea and Samaria are protected, the large cities are protected. We must be on the offensive in Judea and defeat the enemy. So it may be that the siege on Jerusalem is not going to come from an outside force, Russians or Iranians or whoever, coming and conquering Jerusalem as part of World War III. It might be something like this from those that are already within its borders, or possibly Hezbollah just to the north. Maybe those are the two battles. Maybe Hezbollah comes in from the north, and that's Armageddon. And then you have these Palestinians that are in the West Bank and also throughout Israel, because you do have Arabs that live within Israel itself. If they mobilize them, maybe they would perform the siege on Jerusalem. Remember, this all started with the attack from Hamas, and they named it Al-Aqsa Flood. And they were calling for a large-scale mobilization of the Arab world to take care of Israel once and for all. They called it Al-Aqsa Flood because Al-Aqsa is the mosque. on the Temple Mount, and their call was to protect the Temple Mount because they're worried about Israel changing the status quo. So that could still be resonating with some people, and this conflict just keeps getting more and more and more escalated to the point where you have options on the table that you may not have thought of before. So let's just keep an eye on these things. Let's watch and see what actually happens. Let's not dig our heels in and be like, no, I already have it figured out. The biblical scholars say that Russia is Gog and Magog. Let's just wait and see what happens, and let's keep our minds open. And more than that, let's just be prepared, especially spiritually, because you may wake up one day and it's all taking place, and then it's too late. So please make sure that you do what you need to do spiritually right now, and be ready for that day. Okay, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.